We have said many things about Russell Wilson, and in fairness to him, we should now hear from Wilson. After an extended delay of some 45 minutes after the game, and he was still wearing his pads at this point, he finally made his way to the podium and faced the music. Here's a little bit of what Wilson told reporters after last night's loss.
It's very simple. I think at the end of the day, I got to be better. I got to play better. This team, this defense played their butts off tonight. We had some key good drives. We moved the ball, in the red zone. We just didn't get to capitalize on some of them. And there's some plays there, here and there that we can capitalize on. We were third and long again, too much. That's always tough on offense. And everything else when you're third and 15, third and 17, this and that. And at the end of the day, throwing 2 interceptions can't happen. I let the team down tonight. But the good thing is, one thing I know about myself is I'm going to respond. I don't know any other way. Thank you, guys. Broncos country. That's right.
There was a lot of
let's
that.
Ride.
Yeah. Oh, they'd like to see him ride right out of town. He was booed more last night in that one game by a home crowd than he had ever been in his entire career in Seattle combined. It was open, it was hostile, and they were making no effort to even try to repress it. It began early and it lasted all night. They're thinking, we paid money and we sat out there and tailgated and drank beer and ate hot dogs and came in here for what should have been an easy game against Matt Ryan and the Colts, who stink this year, and we can't score a touchdown. Nobody scored a touchdown last night. And every time I see Russell Wilson speak now, Peter, and I love Russell Wilson. I think he's great for football, even if a lot of it is contrived and manicured. Remember the stories of how when he was 7 years old, his dad had him doing practice press conference. He always has the right thing to say. Glass is always half full, even when it's bone dry and shattered. He still finds a way to be positive. There's a point where it becomes ridiculous. And there's a point, frankly, where Russell Wilson becomes a caricature of himself. And he's kind of there between how he's playing, how he's reacting to it, and some of the goofy stuff we see, whether it's the Let's Ride montage, whether it's that subway hostage video that made the rounds last week that people were having fun with, he is kind of becoming a caricature of himself. And if he's not going to be playing well, it's only going to accelerate. And we talk about Al Michaels' self-awareness of the circumstances last night, that this was a game he just as soon walk out the door and go home and forget about it and just go announcerless game like Jets-Dolphins, December 1980, NBC on a Saturday afternoon. There's no self-awareness from Russell Wilson right now that I can see. And I wonder within the building what they're thinking. Does he exhibit any self-awareness as to what's going on to his teammates and coaches? Or is his attitude, let's ride, let's ride, let's ride? And like, we can't even get on the horse. How are we going to ride?
I did not stay awake as you did, Mike, to watch that last night. But I found myself thinking, as I laid down at a little bit after midnight, I found myself thinking, if I were Patrick Smythe, who's the PR guy of the Denver Broncos, who's great at his job, and I had a couple of sentences with Russell before he went to the podium, I would have said, answer every question in 2 sentences. I mean, this is not a night for soliloquies. This is not a night for to be Joe Judge talking yourself out of a job. This is a night to basically say, this loss is totally on me. It is totally unacceptable, and I will fix it. And I'm embarrassed by what I did out there. I'm embarrassed by how I played. You're not going to see that again. Bang, that's it. Whoever has questions, answer the 5 questions, get out of there. And, and yet, when I watched it this morning, it's soliloquies again. It's just, no one wants to hear the Russell Wilson promises about how I'm going to do better for 3 minutes. It's words are not what works now. There are no words. The only words are, I was terrible tonight. I am going to spend every waking moment fixing it. You won't see that again. Questions. And every question you answer in 9 words, and you're out of there. And you're not riding at the end of the press conference. That to me, sometimes with Russell Wilson, he's so Mr. Perfect. Sometimes, you do more harm with being Mr. Perfect than you do by literally being up there and seething, because that's what he should have been doing last night.
Well, and I think that the one thing we all want to know is what's wrong. And not that is a question that's easy for anyone in the press room to articulate. And one of the things about a press conference setting, it's very easy to be looking around saying, maybe somebody also asked this question I'd love to ask, but it's going to piss him off. What's wrong with you? What happened to you? Why don't you run the ball anymore? Why are you staring down the first guy in your progression and not even trying to make through your reads? Why aren't you the guy that what would you say to Broncos fans who are wondering, why did we give up all these draft picks and all these dollars for a guy who has lost his fastball? These are not easy questions to ask, and because he comes off as such a nice guy, it makes it even more challenging to be that blunt with him. And maybe that's his suit of armor. If he continues to be the guy he's always been, nobody asks him any tough questions like that, and he just kind of smiles his way through every answer. But there really are some tough questions that are going to be asked everywhere. This show, any show that's out there, internet. I already have seen, some Denver. They want to get rid of Nathaniel Hackett right now, like guys like Mark Kisla. And would it really stun you if the Walton Penner Group is willing to decide right now we've seen enough? We're just going to let E.J. Evero be the head coach and see how he does, because we're going to have to make a decision after the season anyway. Let's give Evero a chance to show us on the job if he can make this better. But, they authorized spending extra money to bring in Jerry Rossberg to get better decisions late in games, and they're not getting better decisions late in games. And at a certain point, it's no longer about, well, Russell Wilson's just not performing. You have to make your decisions factoring in that Russell Wilson has a bad shoulder, that he has lost his fastball, that he is not the guy that he was in Seattle. And you have to still try to find a way to win the game despite these limitations that no one can figure out. And that really is the key, Peter. And until somebody has that very honest and frank conversation with Wilson, I think he has to have it with himself. What has happened to me, and how do I go about getting it back? And can I get it back? I don't know. The Broncos don't know. And I think right now Wilson doesn't know. But I think Wilson's going to try to avoid asking himself that question for as long as he can.
Mike, the only way I do something during the season, and look, we're not in there. We don't know if there's a guy on the staff, as you mentioned, who could be the head coach. I think the only way I do something right now, honestly, is if you could send out a lifeline and you could hire Sean Payton tomorrow. I mean, that could be something that would be interesting, might make a little bit of sense. And again, I realize all this would be tremendously unfair, but as I said, there's a 4-alarm fire in this building right now, and urgent measures are required. Whatever they are, I don't know. But I know a few of the measures that have to be taken on the field. Off the field, it's probably good that you've got a couple of days to let everything, sort of simmer and cool off. Could you imagine if this was a Monday night game and you had to get ready to play on Sunday? I mean, I don't know how you could go in on Wednesday morning, have your team meeting, look your defensive guys in the face and say, okay, guys, let's go. Come on, we got to go do this. Can you imagine how guys like Bradley Chubb must feel right now? Patrick Surtain Jr. I mean, what are they feeling? It doesn't matter how good we are. We're not going anywhere with this team. And so, I think the only reason that I would do something is if it was very, very clear that Nathaniel Hackett was totally lost at sea and has lost the team. And I don't know that we can know that, watching it from 10,000 feet.
what I've seen from 10,000 feet is he's overmatched, that the job is too big for him. The moments are too big for him. He can't function properly in those moments, and it's pass-fail. You either make a good decision or you don't. The decision you make works or it doesn't. And is it enough of a sample size between what we saw just 4 weeks ago in the Monday night game, the loss in Seattle? Their 2 wins felt like losses. This has just been kind of a sluggish, quicksand type of an experience for everyone. And, Peter, I'll say this. From a team standpoint, maybe it's good to let everyone get out of the building and have a hard reset, and then we'll come back and we'll get ready for the Chargers. For Hackett, it actually may be a bad thing that ownership now has a chance to convene and focus. And if I'm Greg Penner or Rob Walton or Kerry Walton Penner, all 3 of them, the 3 we saw sitting there clapping because they knew they were on camera and they had to act like they really wanted to be there even though they'd rather be back in Bentonville running Walmart. These folks are titans of industry. They are strategic. They are incisive. And I doubt that they have made their careers by doubling down on bad decisions. If there's a situation that needs to be fixed, they're going to fix it. And the guy on the left, I guarantee you, Greg Penner is going to convene a meeting today without George Paton, without Nathaniel Hackett, and they're going to figure out a plan. What are we going to do about this asset we have purchased for $4.65 billion? About the people who are managing this asset that we didn't hire? We inherited all of these people. The only decision they've made, substantively, is to pay Russell Wilson. And that undoubtedly was at the recommendation of George Paton. So that's not a feather in his cap either. And I love George Paton, and he waited a long time for his opportunity to be a general manager. He said no to a lot of teams, and he saw a perfect opportunity in Denver. And just like Rick Spielman went down with the Kirk Cousins ship, George Paton may be going down with the SS Russell Wilson. But if I'm Greg Penner, I am convening a meeting of the brain trust of ownership. Condoleezza Rice is involved and others. And I'm coming up with a plan. And and all options are on the table. We're going to come up with a plan for fixing this. We've got a fan base that is already at their wits' end. We're going to start having a bunch of no-shows. They had about 5,000 last night. And even though the tickets are sold, no-show means they're not paying for parking. They're not paying way too much money for beer. They're not paying way too much money for hot dogs. They're not paying money for anything because they're not there. This snowball is going to start rolling down the hill at an accelerated rate. What are we doing? And it may be we go the next 3 games. Chargers, Jets, and then the game in London on October 30 against the Jaguars, because then the bye week comes. And we'll see how the next 3 games go. And maybe we'll make some aggressive, permanent measures after that bye week game. But whatever they do, Peter, however it shakes out, I guarantee you that Greg Penner and others are going to be sitting down, evaluating this situation from a business standpoint and implementing a business strategy. And these folks are uniquely qualified to do it because they did it with Walmart to the point where, and not that they started the company, but they've helped take it to higher and higher heights. There's so many people in that family that are billionaires, multiple times over. That company has been spouting off money for decades, and they know how to run a business. And that's why I think this hurts Nathaniel Hackett, that they have an occasion now with 11 days, the longest you can have between games without a bye. I think it hurts. It's good for them to have this opportunity. It may hurt Nathaniel Hackett because they're going to be talking about him a lot today and whether or not he's the guy long-term or short-term.
Well, Mike, as much as I want to be very, very decisive now and make some very hard decisions if I'm ownership, I also realize, you talk about Kirk Cousins. Rick Spielman had 4 years with Kirk Cousins before he got fired. And I doubt sincerely that this ownership group is going to give Nathaniel Hackett 5 games and then fire him. It would be the classic panic move. Now, again, we don't know what's going on inside the building. We don't know if he's being held up, if he's being marionetted by Jerry Rossberg and others. We don't know that. I kind of doubt that's the case, but we don't know. I do think the one thing that you can do is I would bring George Payton into that meeting that you discussed. And I would just say, George, we need some answers. And we need to find out. We're new in football. We've never run a football team. We've never owned a football team, obviously. We need to find out why we shouldn't go off the rails right now and do something drastic. Fly up to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and meet with Sean Payton and give him a ransom to come and coach our team tomorrow. So those are the kind of questions. Everything should be on the table. But I think it would be a total panic move right now to fire the head coach of this team.
Oh, it would be. But if it's a 4-alarm fire, Peter, the panic move is to get the hell out of the house. Call the fire department. That's the point. They need to assess how bad this is and what their options are for fixing it. And I don't know what their final option will be. My point is this. These folks are strategic and they are smart, and they will definitely figure out a plan today. And you know what?
But
Maybe
you know what Mike, you know what? Let me just say one thing about that. You're absolutely right. But they also didn't get to be a $70 billion family or person, whoever's money all that is. They didn't get that by selling valuable stocks at 22 cents on the dollar. And that's what this would be right now, in my opinion. If you do something like fire the coach, what you're doing is you are listening to the talk shows in Denver. You're doing what the fans want you to do. You're making somebody walk the plank. And again, I just think that it's time to basically say, hey, listen, this isn't the history of any of these people. We're going to give it a little bit more time, and then we're going to see what we're going to do. And at the end of the day, Mike, really, what can you do with Russell Wilson? I think that is one of the biggest issues. If he continues on this trail the rest of this year, it's going to be very, very hard. And again, that's why you don't make a monumental decision like this after 5 weeks. But if Russell Wilson in the next 12 games is what he's been in the first 5 weeks, I think you've got some serious thinking to do about what you do at quarterback in your future.
Well, I think that at that point, if we get 12 more of these performances from Russell Wilson, job number one next year is to have a head coach who has a clear plan for getting the most out of Russell Wilson and getting him back to who he was. And you give that a year or two to see if it works. Now, you mentioned Sean Payton a couple of times. It becomes very difficult, and maybe in the current climate with the pending Brian Flores lawsuit, impossible to make an outside hire during the season. I remember years ago when I think it was the year that everyone knew Mike Shanahan was going to be the coach in Washington after the season. I poked around with the league office, and what are the rules if they would just want to fire Jim Zorn during the season and bring Mike Shanahan in now? And at the time, the rule was if you're going to bring in somebody from the outside, you have to do a Rooney Rule compliant search before you make the interim hire, and then you have to start all over again after the season. So I think it would be very difficult to hire Sean Payton now. But you know what they could do, Peter? They could go see Sean Payton. Now, I don't know how this works with the tampering rules, and they'd have to be careful about that. And it doesn't mean you're going to see Sean Payton to talk about being employed. You're doing a one-day consulting excursion with Sean Payton, where you're paying him a significant amount of money to tell you what he would do to fix Russell Wilson. We got some of it for free in his interview with Colin Cowherd earlier this week. But nuts and bolts specifics, Sean Payton, tell us what we need to do to fix Russell Wilson. And that becomes the introduction that potentially leads to Sean Payton becoming the head coach of the team, if he even wants to be. Hey, Peter, if I'm Sean, I'm looking at the Chargers right now, who are underachieving and may have a coaching vacancy after the year, and the Broncos, who are underachieving and may have a coaching vacancy end of the year. And I'm saying, I'll take Justin Herbert over Russell Wilson right now, 100 out of 100 times. I'm not hitching my wagon to a guy who's lost his fastball. And again, until we know why and how and can he find it back again, I'm not touching that job if I'm Sean Payton. But I think they need to find somebody on the outside who can consult with them. And I'm always a little hesitant about hiring consultants because you are hiring their biases and prejudices and who they like and who they don't like, and it's hard to really get to the truth. But if I'm Greg Penner, that's one of the things that is on the table. Can I find someone who can give us some sound advice on how to fix this short of taking extreme action? My overriding point is this. There's no way in hell those three people we saw watching that game last night are just going to sleep in today, read the newspaper, go about their business, and act like nothing happened. They are going to take this seriously. If we care enough about it and we've got no skin in the game to take it seriously and spend 50 minutes talking about it, I guarantee you it is their only priority today to figure out what in the hell is wrong with Russell Wilson, Nathaniel Hackett, and everything else that is going wrong with that team, and what can we do to improve it, if anything, between now and next Monday night. And if not by then, between now and the bye. And then what do we implement during the bye, if anything, if this crap show continues? I think whatever the outcome, I think that meeting is going to consume 3 or 4 hours today at the team headquarters.
Yeah, however long the meeting is, you're right. They're not going to just take this. They will be active owners. I'm sure they looked at this first year saying, okay, let's learn the rhythm. Let's learn how this business works. The pro football business. Let's learn the correct way to operate this team. But they didn't know they would find themselves in an emergency 1 month into the season. And isn't it incredible, Mike? The first game of this football season, it was 1 month ago tomorrow. That was the Thursday night game. And it's amazing how many monstrous things have happened to the Denver Broncos in the span of 1 month, in less than a month. And this is what I think this ownership group needs to do right now. They need to be thoughtful about this. They need to be probably more patient than they would like to be. I don't think it's time to do angry things. I think it's time to take a deep breath, express faith in your people, and see where it leads you over the next 3 weeks before your bye.
I think option 3 is don't do angry things, do very calm and reasoned and strategic things, and wherever that leads us is where it leads us. And if we have to start inviting people to exit the employment of the organization, if that's what we decide, so be it. But I'm not saying do it angrily. I'm saying doing it with a very clear head and an open mind as to what the possibilities are for turning this around. We need to take a break, but as we go to break, I am reminded of saying if we can show that image again of the 3 members of ownership sitting in the booth. A wise man once told me, as it relates to the issue of being rich and famous, the only thing better than being rich and famous is being rich. And I think those 3 folks probably are already longing for the days of extremely wealthy anonymity. Because at some point, Peter, it's going to turn on them. What are you people doing to make our football team better? For now, it's focused on Russell Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett. At some point, it's going to be focused on them. And they're going to be thinking, man, it was a hell of a lot better when nobody knew who we were and we were just richer than God. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.